My guest today is Natalie Battaglia. She is my inspiration for living alcohol-free life. She's been 3+ years alcohol-free. It all started with a bet. Someone bet her that she would never be able to stop drinking. Next thing you know, 3 years later, she's still not have had a drink. She started this beautiful Instagram page with these home crafted mocktails. Basically, it's called the Mindful Mocktail, where she is sharing with people beautiful alcohol-free drinks that are good for you, healthy, and they don't make you feel like crap the next day. So if you're one of those that's kind of like super sober curious, this might be a great episode for you. I myself have been alcohol-free for a little bit over 6 months, and I have truly also saw the benefits in my own life, my mindset, my body, my health. So I hope you enjoyed it. Welcome, Natalie Battaglia. So excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me and asking me to come on.
But those who don't know you, if you don't mind just giving us a little background on yourself and how you started with sober lifestyle, alcohol-free, and your beautiful Instagram with the most beautiful crafted mocktails.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, shall I go back and sort of tell my story as to
Yeah,
how my relationship with alcohol changed? Because that's where it sort of all started for
yeah.
me. So it would be around 4 years ago now, although it was much longer than that, if I'm being honest. I recognized my relationship with alcohol was not great. So if we go back, to when I was younger, I was a child in the 80s in Australia. Alcohol was just everywhere. Alcohol was part of like every celebration, commiseration, kids' birthday parties, my mum and dad's birthdays, like, alcohol was just always present. And, mum and dad and I have had lots of conversations about how alcohol was just always around when I was younger. So it's certainly not a blame game. It was just the way things were. And our house was, very secure and loving. And, we had a great upbringing. But it's just that, alcohol was always there. So I guess I grew up just thinking that was normal to be, for alcohol to be part of almost everyday life. And, essentially when I grew up and moved out of home, I adopted very similar drinking habits. So I would always have, wine after work. I'd have wine after a good day. I'd have wine after a bad day. There was just always a reason to open a bottle. And the boyfriend that I was living with at the time, he loved to drink as well. So we were, early 20s then. So we were out partying, doing all the things that, young people did back then. We would go out multiple nights, like end on end, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. And, looking back, honestly, I wouldn't change that time. To be honest, that was like some of the real formative years of my life and some of the best times of my life. And I shouldn't sort of, I don't want to glamorize it or anything, but if I can describe it as I was using alcohol in the healthiest way, and I'm doing inverted commas in the air, in the healthiest way possible. So I would use alcohol to enhance an already good social situation, if that made sense.
Yeah.
I wasn't using alcohol to like numb or escape reality or anything like that. But then I separated from that relationship, and then I met someone new, and we ended up getting married and having kids. And it was really after I had my two little boys very close together that my relationship with alcohol really started to take a turn. And I think I really struggled in those first couple of years of being a mum. And I think looking back, if I'm being really honest, I probably had some sort of postnatal depression and just felt very, very hard to adapt to being a mum and having all this responsibility. And, I was quite a social butterfly back then, and I really missed going out with my friends and, you know, catching up for dinners and, you know, dancing till the wee hours of the morning. And, you know, I just found that whole transition really difficult, and I found myself keeping up a similar drinking pace, but now I was doing it at home by myself because my husband didn't drink. Like, he's not really a drinker at all. You know, so I went from, you know, having a nice dinner out with friends, you know, and having a couple of glasses of wine with my fish or steak or whatever, like complementing the food, to standing at home, folding the washing, downing a bottle of red wine by myself with 2 kids. And that happened like really subtly over probably a period of like 2 to 4 years, where I was really relying on alcohol more and more to sort of cope with life and, you know, just sort of numb down the monotony of, I make motherhood sound terrible, don't get me wrong, I love being a mum, but in those early days I had a baby and a toddler, and it was just really hard. I just found it really hard.
I mean, you were living the mommy wine culture, which is so common here in the United States. It's like, okay, now kids went to sleep, now I can have a glass of wine, or, you know, I get it. I get it.
Yes, and it was everywhere, and it was accepted. My husband knew that I was drinking at towards the end, he didn't realize exactly how much I was drinking. But, you know, no one ever said anything to me. No one ever said, hey, Nat, do you think maybe, you know, you should stop or drink less? Or it was really this internal voice that I started to hear. It was like, oh, this is not good. Because, you know, she speaks to me, this internal voice. I ignore her. And in case, I ignored her for many years, but I started to do funny little things, like instead of bringing the wine out onto the kitchen bench, I would drink the wine in the cupboard. So I would have my wine in the cupboard, and I would have my glass in the cupboard, and I would stand there and drink the wine, you know, and hide it from the kids and hide it from my husband, Damien, you know. And then I started to put the recycling bin out because I didn't want him to feel how heavy it was. And just, you know, all these, I started to hide it more and more. And, you know, a couple of really scary things happened with the kids when they were younger. And, you know, there was the real sort of like turning point for me where I thought, all right, Nat, you know, we've really got to do something about this here. It was just like a really subtle thing, but I think I was ready to hear it. Like, my brain was finally ready to receive this message that, you know, had been whispering all of these years. My husband and my 4-year-old son, they were doing like some meal prepping in our kitchen, and they had all of these nuts that they were meal prepping. And my grandma had recently passed away, so I was up in the study and I was putting together her, I don't know if you call it the same thing over there, but like a eulogy. Yeah, so I had like all old photos, old videos, and I'd been put in charge of putting together like this slideshow that would play in the background during her eulogy. And I was very close to my grandma, so I was quite devastated about her passing. And it was a Saturday afternoon, and I said to my husband, I'm going to have some champagne while I do this. So I'd taken this bottle of champagne up into the study, and I was scanning all these photos and trying to put this presentation together. And Damien called me down from the kitchen and said, you know, Nat, can you just come here for a minute? And his voice sounded really strange. And I walked down the hallway, and there was my 4-year-old son sitting on the bench having an anaphylactic reaction to nuts on the bench. And at the time, we didn't know he was allergic to nuts. So this was a complete shock to us. And we didn't really even know what was happening. We'd never seen anyone have an anaphylactic reaction before. But, you know,
the airways as well.
Yes. And, you know, lips were starting to swell and everything was like moving quite quickly. But I remember this like split second first thought, like first reaction was, I was pissed off. I was annoyed because I was going to have to stop drinking.
Mm.
And it wasn't even a second. It was like a split second thought, like, far out, I've got to deal with this now kind of thing. And then we sprung into action, called the ambulance. He was fine. You know, he has a nut allergy that we manage now. But in the weeks and months that followed, I really did a lot of self-reflection there and thought about, you know, how bad it could have been if I wasn't only 2 glasses in. Like, what if I was a bottle in or 2 bottles in? Why I prioritized in that moment, you know, not being able to drink over my son and his health, and just really did a lot of soul searching, and, you know, really came to the realization that I'd known deep down for a long time, but it was that alcohol just had this huge hold on me, and it was becoming more and more unhealthy as the years went on. And that was the point in time where I sought help. And pretty much discovered, that I had alcohol use disorder and was using, you know, alcohol in a really, really unhealthy way.
I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this story. You know, you're not like, oh, I'm an alcoholic and you know it. It's just the use of alcohol over time, it just becomes more addicting. Alcohol is one of the most addicting substances out there. And I personally can relate to your story. I don't have kids, but I've been in situations where alcohol really was taking over things, like, no, this is more important than this. So I actually stopped drinking 6 months ago. So I'm a little bit under what you are, but yeah, that's a very powerful story. Wasn't there something like, did somebody like, did do a bet with you that you won't be able to quit or something? And that's how it started? Or
Yeah, my husband, he knows me very well. To outsiders, it can sort of come across as unsupportive, to be honest, because he said to me, you will never be able to stop drinking. Like, you won't be able to do it. And, you know, as I said to other people, they might think, wow, what an asshole. But he said that to me because
yeah.
I love a challenge. And by telling, basically, when someone tells me I can't do something, that's just license for me to go, well, I'll show you. So, you know, we still joke about it to this day. But, you know, with one sentence, he was able to stop me drinking.
Awesome. I'm the same way. Hey, you challenge me, and you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna show you.
That's right. So, exactly right.
That's awesome. So it was like a temporary, you were like, okay, I'm gonna stop drinking temporarily, but it was never like, oh, I'm never gonna drink. It was just like, oh, I'm gonna show him that I can stop drinking.
That's right. So I ended up doing, I don't know if you've heard of it, but the live alcohol experiment. It's run by
Annie Grace.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
they're actually putting up the course again tomorrow, which it's an amazing, they do like a live one where, you know, you can interact with the coaches and everything. But I did the 30-day live alcohol experiment, and really by day, I think it was 16 or 17, I'd heard enough. I'm like, that's it. That I could not believe. I mean, look, I probably didn't want to know up until this point, but I couldn't believe what I was hearing about alcohol and about how bad it is for us. And like, in particular, I don't want to, like, how can I say this? I'm a bit of a feminist myself, so I don't want to call this the weaker gender. But seriously, when it comes to alcohol, females are the weaker gender in terms of how our bodies process alcohol, how our bodies get rid of alcohol, how, you know, men and women can drink of the same weight. We can drink a similar amount in one sitting, and the way it impacts our bodies in comparison to a male's body due to our, you know, fat composition and everything, you know, our bodies just take on so much more of the alcohol than what it does for a man. And it's just, you know, I mean, the age, I'm turning 40 next month, and, you know, from the ages of 35 onwards, a woman's liver percentage can actually, like, size can actually reduce by up to 40% during these next few years of our lives. And, I don't know. Some of the things that I heard, I just thought women our age, they need to hear this information. I follow some really fantastic sobriety coaches, Sarah Rusbach and Lucy from Thriveless Sobriety. And even the other day, like we were talking about how, over here in Australia, at least, women aged 35 to 60, like we're drinking at record levels, which is really scary. The younger ones are, waking up and realizing just how bad alcohol is. But this whole age group of 35 and above really are still drinking quite a lot. And yeah,
that's interesting. I wonder, why is that, the 35 to 60? Is it just the years of more like alcohol addiction over years? Maybe you end up drinking more, or stress, or just lifestyle?
Personally, I think it's the fact that we all grew up with it. So we grew up in a different time. 20-year-olds, teenagers are growing up now with much more awareness and education as to how bad alcohol is. Whereas a lot of people who are sort of 35, 40, 50, 60, they're like, whatever, I've drunk alcohol my whole life, I'm not going to change now, kind of thing. So I think in many ways we're sort of set in our ways. But also it's interesting because when we hit our mid-30s, our progesterone levels start to decline. And progesterone is responsible for like feeling calm, feeling relaxed, feeling able to
good.
Good, like all of these things, like less depressive thoughts. So from our late 30s, like we start to feel more anxious and more stressed, and our sleep is impacted and everything else. But that is also the time where, for most of us, our lives are at the busiest they have ever been. Many of us have, it's that time of the year, time of our lives where many of us like have young children, or our careers are taking off, or we're caregiving to our parents because they're getting elderly. We're, married, or we've got friendships that we need to nurture. We're working hard, we're running a household. So our poor bodies, I feel for women, because at this time where our ability to manage stress is reducing, our lives are often the most stressful they've ever been. And women naturally, I think, just turn to quick fixes because we're so busy, and it can seem easier to reach for a glass of wine than to go for a half an hour walk, or to calm our minds down enough to meditate, or whatever it is that, will give us that same level of relaxation. So we reach for a drink thinking that it's going to calm us down. But research now shows that alcohol over time actually lowers our resilience and our ability to manage stress.
Yeah, increases our anxiety, makes our sleep worse, our REM cycle. I read This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, and I did the 30-day alcohol experience. I actually read the book. I don't know if I did the same thing that you did, but that really opened my eyes as a medical professional myself. Like, I didn't know all the statistics, all the things like cancer risk in women, like it just triples when you're drinking alcohol. And people think that it's like big, large amounts of alcohol. It doesn't have to be a lot. It's like light to moderate consumption. And I myself didn't drink every single day, but those weekends, like easily a bottle at night watching a movie. I mean, it was like the norm. Okay, I got home, it's been a busy day or week at work, and first thing you do, you pop a bottle, and you're just like, oh, that's the norm, and just relaxing. And then next thing you know, you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning because you haven't slept well. And it's always the same time, 3 to 4, always wake up when you drink.
Well, it's interesting because in China, I don't know much about Chinese medicine, but I remember someone telling me this whole, we were talking about what is it about 3 a.m. And in Chinese medicine, waking up at 3 a.m. is a sign of an unhealthy liver.
Oh, so, yes.
Doesn't it? Because your body's like desperately trying to process all this alcohol, and so we sort of naturally wake up at that time. But it's, again, we don't talk about the fact that when we drink alcohol, like our body's first response to that is poison, poison, danger, danger. And its first priority is getting rid of the alcohol, you know? So it's almost sort of like, I won't say shuts down, and you would know more about this than me, but let's just say you're having wine and a pizza. Your body's a process like that pizza, and to get rid of like the, you know, nasties from the pizza, and like, you know, for our metabolism to be working effectively, because our body is processing, no, get rid of the wine, get rid of the wine, we're unable to process the pizza properly, which results in extra weight gain. And like, it's just all, I could go on and on. There's so many things that I learned that is mind-blowing to me that we don't talk about. It's just such a I mean, we're getting better at it, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you know, I love now, I've seen the sober culture being so prominent in the last year or so, and I love it. Like, I see more influencers talk about it, and like people that I didn't even know that don't drink, like Thomas DeLauer, a lot of the celebrities out there that don't drink. And so I love that people are coming up with it and sharing this information. And, you know, it doesn't have to be like, hey, I was an alcoholic. Sometimes it's just when it's unhealthy, if you're using it in an unhealthy way, like to numb or to release your stress, it is not good for you. And Andrew Huberman, I don't know if you listen to some of his stuff. He talks extensively about how alcohol is any amount, even the smallest amount, is neuroinflammatory, inflames your brain, and it's just toxic to your body. Ethanol is a toxin. If we didn't put all the sugar, all the additives in the alcohol, you would not be able to drink it. Your body would throw it out completely. You would not be able to drink it. So
it's weird. It's
crazy.
Like when the lights get turned on, like I talk to my friends about, like, all of a sudden just having this realization of how bad it is, and like how weird it is now when I go to like a fancy bar and there's just this massive wall of like beautiful drinks and all different colors, and all the lights, everything looks pretty and so sophisticated. And in my head, I'm like, it's ethanol and sugar. It's ethanol and sugar. What are we doing? Why are we glamorizing it in this way?
It is. And, you know, it's like a conditioned throughout our entire life. It's the liquor stores, the movies that we're watching. Everybody, you know, like, drink. Every movie you watch, they're drinking wine. They get home, and subconsciously, that's what your mind gets conditioned, that is the norm, and that is like what you do when you're happy, when you're having a good time. And they don't talk about the other effects. So speaking of, like, for yourself, I know you've been alcohol free for over 3 years. What effects have you seen in your body that have improved? Like, what have you seen yourself?
Well, the number one thing I would say is the sleep. And again, going back all those years, I really did underestimate how important quality sleep is.
Yes.
You know, I had multiple wake ups a night, or I'd wake up early in the morning after going to bed late. And I never realized, I mean, I always knew that good sleep was important, but I guess I never realized how important it was. So the sleep would be, you know, the absolute number one thing for me. And I'm also a really big believer about like the way you start your day really does set the pattern for the rest of the day. And when I think about, you know, all those years where I woke up with like a dry mouth, dull headache, like feeling really sluggish and gross, like makeup still on from the night before, just, you know, like messy, messy. You know, and that's how I was starting every day, like already like super dehydrated, going down to the kitchen, sculling some coffee, making myself more dehydrated. You know, in an effort to wake up, and then dealing with 2 kids, you know, all day, and then working and all the rest of it. So I'd say, like sleep and the way I start my mornings, because now I wake up, don't get me wrong, like I don't wake up every morning and bounce out of bed or anything, but I wake up and I generally feel good. You know,
you're refreshed. You're not hungover. You're not like dragging behind. Yeah.
Yeah. And also it was funny because before I stopped drinking, I felt like my life was totally full. Like I absolutely couldn't fit anything else into my life. Like I was just so busy all the time, and I was at capacity. Whereas it's so interesting because I quit drinking and all of a sudden this whole new world has opened up with the Mindful Mocktail. I have connected with people all over the world, and I've essentially started, a community, and which has now turned into somewhat of a business. But my life hasn't changed otherwise. Like I've still got the kids and I still work my other job and I still do all of the other things. But somehow I've managed to create this amazing thing on top of what I was already doing. And, when I look back all the time that alcohol took up, it's not just the drinking, it's not just the act of the drinking, but it's the sleeping that bit longer the next day because you feel so rotten. It's hitting that 3 o'clock slump in the afternoon and not being able to function or do anything properly after that. It's all the thoughts and I guess I just devoted so much time and energy to alcohol that I thought I didn't have any more time. But it's like all of a sudden I've just got this extra time and I've been able to fit this whole new business into my life.
Yeah. And, another thing that comes with that is also that mind clarity. When your mind is clear, you're not like living. I felt when I was drinking, I was always in this fog. I felt like I was always tired. I was always in this fog. And it's like now I don't even remember that life anymore. Like, especially on the weekends, waking up Saturday after having a bottle of wine on the Friday night, watching a movie. You're dragging butt, like you're supposed to go to the gym, but you're just so tired, just foggy. It's just, oh gosh, I don't even want to remember.
And I used to like schedule in hangover dates, like if I knew I went
Yeah.
something on Saturday
Yeah.
and someone asked me to do something on the Sunday, I'd be like, oh, there's no possible way because I'll be hungover, like I'll be on the couch kind of thing. Then I
That's
waste 50% of my weekend because of the Saturday night, and it's crazy.
It really is. So speaking of your Instagram page, because that's how I found you, through the Mindful Mocktail page on your Instagram with your beautiful, colorful, crafted mocktails. How did that come to life? Like, when did that start?
Oh, so when it was actually very soon after I stopped drinking, you know how we really are creatures of habit. And I would always reach for a wine at, 5 o'clock, or like in my darker days, it would be earlier than that. But I was basically just missing that afternoon drink. And at the time back then, I looked at alcohol-free options to see what was available. But, so many of them, I mean, even now, it's getting better now, but so many of them were just packed with like artificial sugar and, just juices or just really not great stuff. And I thought I was also very aware of, that sugar can be addictive too. And I'm like, I don't want to go from alcohol addiction to a sugar addiction. So I just thought to myself, surely there must be a better way. And this was the time we were coming into COVID. And I thought, I was at home, obviously, like everyone else was, with my boys, and my husband was working very long hours. So it was actually a really hard time, probably one of the hardest times to quit drinking, really. Everyone else's drinking was ramping up, whereas I was like, I cannot do a lockdown with alcohol. This is not going to be good for me or my kids if I do that. But I had this like herb garden that the boys and I used to, sort of tend to. And I thought, I wonder if I could start making drinks, really nice drinks, but with less sugar and fresh ingredients, and just sort of see how it works. So I did. I started creating these recipes. I looked into, mixology, did a lot of research online as to, how to make. There wasn't a lot out there now. My website has become sort of more of a resource on how to make mocktails, because there wasn't a lot out there. But basically just sort of looked into flavor pairing and, balancing flavors and everything else. And I started to make these drinks, and then I started to share them with friends and family. I text them through, share them with friends and family, and had great feedback, and just thought, you know what, I'm going to start something here. This is going to be like my COVID project. So I started Instagram first, and I started sharing some recipes. But it was interesting, it was really when I started sharing my personal story that it really started to take off. So I was sharing about how on paper, like, I was a classic high achiever, good job, 2 young kids, functioning member of society, like no one, like sort of seemingly well put together. Like, people have said to me since, gosh, you just never would have known that you had a problem with alcohol. And just started sharing my personal story, and it just was amazing. I got emails, I got messages, so many comments, so many people following me just saying, this is exactly me, but it's so shameful to admit that you have a problem with alcohol, because there's these, connotations of like, drinking out of brown paper bags and being like a drunk in the gutter kind of thing, whereas it just, is not like that at all. Like, so many of us are just, people with alcohol use disorder in plain sight who just look like everyone else, and you just never know. And it was really then that I started to build the community, and then I started my website, which is now, it gets over 1 million sessions every year.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I share a bit on there about, my sober life and everything. And so it really went from there. And Instagram is really where, a lot of my connections have been made. It's such an amazing platform. And, I have people that have been following me since the very beginning, and brand new, followers that are coming on every day. And it's just a really, really fun place to be. And it's not just about non-alcoholic cocktails. I also share, we've got Dry July starting here today in Australia, and I also share things like what happens to our bodies after 1 week alcohol-free, 2 weeks alcohol-free. So just, alcohol education and exploring, like encouraging people to explore a life with less alcohol or no alcohol.
I love your Instagram. I think it's absolutely outstanding. It's beautiful. It's just everything on it is just perfect. So those who want to check her Instagram out, The Mindful Mocktail, and even just like sober curious, like just go on there and just read and try these mocktails. Like, I actually went on my first beach vacation this year where I didn't drink. It was like my first beach vacation on my birthday, and I didn't drink, and I've never felt better. It was like, this was when I knew, I was like, I got this. Because, I think for me, the biggest thing with quitting alcohol, as we all know, alcohol is one of the only drugs out there that we have to make an excuse why we don't want to drink, why we don't want it, which is so bizarre. Just this whole stigma with like not drinking. It's so crazy. So for me, before, when I tried to like just not drink, I always felt like I was giving up something. And when I got to the point where I realized that I'm not giving up, I'm gaining so much. But giving up this one thing, I'm gaining so much in my life. I'm gaining the vitality, energy, my health, feeling good, being in control, because any addiction, you're not in control, whether it's coffee or alcohol, whatever else out there. So that was the biggest thing for me that helped me realize that, no, I don't need it, because I'm gaining so much more. I'm not losing or giving up something. And having options like the non-alcoholic drinks, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I know for some people, especially with the non-alcoholic beer and wine and things and spirits, like things that are truly meant to replicate alcohol, it can be dangerous to play around things that emulate or replicate alcohol. So, I'd always say proceed with caution. especially if you're early on and you did fall, on that alcohol use disorder scale. Just, proceed with caution and be mindful. But there are also, if you're not ready to experiment or you don't want to experiment with things, plenty of my recipes, they're not meant to emulate alcohol. It's just like a nourishing drink, an adult drink that just tastes good. And a lot of them have, nutritional qualities and benefits too. And there's also plenty that you can store-bought things you can buy, as you say, like even your kombuchas or, lots of different things that aren't meant to replicate alcohol that are a really nice, replacement for that afternoon wine, or if you're going to a barbecue or something like that, that you can open. So it's really an excellent time to be exploring, drinking less, drinking nothing, because there's just so many options out there now. It's a really exciting time.
Yeah. How long did it take you to see a difference in your body and your mind when you stopped drinking alcohol?
Look, body-wise, both were almost immediate, to be honest. Like if we're talking mind, I mean, I woke up after that first week and was just like, this is incredible. I mean, it sounds terrible, but I couldn't remember the last time I hadn't had a drink for a week. Like it would have been when I was pregnant, and then pregnancy comes with it all these other things. So you sort of fit not anyway a lot of the time. I could not believe how good I felt. I've always been sort of a smaller person, so I wouldn't say like weight loss or anything was a big thing, but I could start to see like my skin was brighter, my eyes, the whites of my eyes were whiter, even like my teeth were whiter because I wasn't drinking wine, was,
the red wine, yes. The purple teeth. Oh my gosh, so many pictures of the purple teeth. Oh my gosh.
I would wake up with the purple mouth. I think about it now. So I mean the changes were almost immediate, and the thing is too, like it really does get better and better and better. So I had sort of experimented with dry months here and there, and got to the end of the 30 days and thought it was almost like a justification, like, there you go, I can go 30 days without alcohol. I don't have a problem with alcohol. See, everybody, I don't have a problem with alcohol. I can go for 30 days. But, I was crawling to the end of those 30 days, like counting down the days till I could drink. And again, looking back now, it's like, Nat, you were crawling to the end of that 30 days desperate for a drink. That indicates that was a problem for you. One of the best sayings I ever heard was, if not drinking is a problem, then drinking is a problem. And it's so true. If you're not drinking and you're really desperately feeling like you're missing out or craving it, then that's the sign that maybe things aren't quite right.
So for you, would you say that your husband challenging you to the, like, no, you can't quit, was that the thing for you that did it for you, or was it the situation with your son, or just kind of like a accumulation of different things?
Accumulation of different things, but really the moment where I realized things need to change was what happened with my son, and my mind immediately going to missing out on drinking for the afternoon when I should have been, tending to him. And, lots of mums have sort of said to me, oh, that's normal. Like, we feel the same way. I remember my daughter was hurt once, and, my thought was, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to take her to the doctor because I want to keep drinking, or we're partying here or whatever. And a lot of people say that's normal. But I guess the thing is, I didn't want that to be my normal. Like I wanted to make a choice for me and say, I don't want that to be my normal. And I was also very aware of the fact that I had grown up seeing my parents drink almost every day was one of the reasons why I took on those drinking habits. And I didn't want my boys to see me drinking every day and thinking that was
the norm.
We don't demonize alcohol in this house. We don't, I mean, the boys are still only young, they're 6 and 8. So the whole alcohol conversation doesn't come up very often, but they do love mummy's drinks. Mummies, they tell all their friends that mummy makes these special mocktails, which is very cute.
Do they help you out with those?
Yeah, they help me out. Yeah, they help me out. They've got a very sweet palate, though. They love all the sweet drinks, and I'm like,
that's cute.
It's very cute, but yeah, I didn't want them. We don't demonize alcohol in the house. We don't speak badly about it, and I just want them to get to a point when they come to an age where they're ready to try alcohol, that they go in without being swayed, either way from society or from us.
Yeah, because kids model too. Like, if you're drinking every night your glass of wine, they model after you and they think that's the norm. And so, yeah, that's important too. We don't think that a lot of times they see it, like a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, but they do. They see what you do and they model after that. Is there a safe amount of alcohol, or do you think all levels of alcohol can be addicting at some point?
Well, I mean, it's like saying, is there any safe level of smoking? I mean, my answer is, I think, look, there's so many, and you would probably be able to speak to this better than me, but our genetic makeup can determine whether we're more predisposed to alcohol addiction or not. So that's why you can have one person who could have half a bottle of wine or one glass of wine and say, yeah, that's enough, thank you. And you have someone else who has 1 or 2 glasses of wine and they're desperately trying to finish the bottle and then go for another bottle.
Yeah.
So personally, I would say it depends on the person. I have a couple of friends who are, again, I'll do it in inverted commas, like healthy drinkers, if there is such. They can literally go out, have a bowl of pasta, have 1 glass of wine and not drink again for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then someone like me who, if that was me having that red wine with the pasta, I would then order another one or probably another 2 before we left the restaurant. And then I would go home and open a bottle of wine and sit there and drink it by myself. So I would say it's really a case-by-case basis. I mean, if we're looking like at the technicalities of it all, technically for our bodies, no. Alcohol is not safe. Our bodies prioritize getting rid of the alcohol as soon as it goes in. So our bodies don't like it. They're giving us a message to say, get rid of this poison. So I think people can just listen to the information and interpret it as they want to. But I would say if you're a regular drinker and you haven't tried to take a decent break from alcohol, I think you would be very surprised after what can happen after a month, 2 months, 3 months. But I think, society and the lives that we've built for ourselves, especially if we are drinkers, can make it very hard to do that. So,
I do think for a lot of people, the hardest part of drinking alcohol is the social. When you go out and, you go on a date, if you're single, you go out for drinks. And it's like that social stigma that people, I feel like more people would quit drinking if that social stigma wasn't there. Like, oh, you're not drinking? Because then people assume right away that then you have an issue. Or like when you go out, like now you have so many more choices. Like you have the mocktails, like stuff that you're doing. You go to a bar and they do have a non-alcoholic option. So I do think that with the sober movement, it is getting a little bit easier for people to be like, it's okay. It's okay not to have a drink and have to make an explanation why you're not drinking for whatever reason you have. And if you don't smoke, people don't ask you, oh, why don't you not smoke? Like I've never had anyone ask me, why don't you smoke? Everybody knows smoking is bad for you, or why don't you do cocaine, right? But for alcohol, it's like, why are you not drinking? What's wrong? Are you okay? So it is hard. I can see like that social aspect of it where it makes it, for me, that was the hardest thing for me, for like personally going out, and friends that always, go out to drink, or you meet at the bar for wine. So
well, I think too, like the hardest thing really for people like you and I to stop drinking is when you've always been a drinker, you by default build a life around you where drinking fits in. So you usually find that all your friends are drinkers. You find that people expect you to drink. You've built a life around you that involves drinking naturally because you are a drinker. And I think that's why community is so important. I think it's why connecting with other people who don't drink is so important, because it can feel very, very isolating if you're the only one people who have decided to make a big life change. And some people don't react very well to that, especially if they're heavy drinkers themselves. So, I know for me, when I know I was in sort of a different situation because I created the Mindful Mocktail, and, people were coming to me telling me their stories. But like I would say, if you decide to cut down on alcohol or stop drinking because you know that it's no longer serving you, really try to make an effort to find, there are plenty of sober social groups around. You can connect with people online if you're not comfortable introducing yourself to a new group of people. But, I know over in the States, they definitely run them. I know like there's No Booze Babes by Shay. And there's just like Sober Dave over in the UK. There's a membership over here called Untoxicated, and they do hikes and beach walks and, all of those things. Because when you actually start to connect with other people who don't drink, you realize how many people there actually are that don't drink. But if you build your life around people who do drink, well, of course, that's all you're going to know. But I'm telling you right now, there are millions of people out there who have decided that's it. I'm not going to drink anymore. And it's a really good opportunity to connect with new people and like broaden your horizons when it comes to friendship groups and everything.
Yeah, that's excellent advice right there. Becoming part of a community, because like you said, it can be isolating. Like when everybody around you that drink and you're the only one that doesn't. It's not always like I don't mind people drinking around me. I don't care. But if you're the only one in the group where everybody else is like really tipsy or drunk, it is not enjoyable at all.
It's not, but I think, this is a perfect opportunity to start laying down some real ground rules for yourself. Like I was in I will say, like, sounds weird, but kind of like blessed situation in that COVID happened when I stopped drinking. So I had all the extra stress to deal with. So I was really missing the wine from that regard. But I didn't have the social situations to deal with. And it was interesting when we opened back up after COVID, after sort of like 12, because we had the longest lockdown in the world over here in Melbourne. So like after 12 months, we were finally able to see people in groups again. And, we were able to drink together. And of course, everyone just wanted to drink. So all of a sudden I had myself, after 12 months of not drinking, my biggest challenge was, oh my gosh, I'm facing all of these people now who still expect me to drink. And I have to deal with the fact that I'm the only non-drinker. But, I set some pretty clear rules around it back then with myself. It's like an hour or two of drunk people and I'm pretty much done. So I'm going to use that opportunity to say, see you later, like go to bed early, wake up the next day and have something planned like yoga or a beach walk or something that I would not have done if I was hungover.
Yeah.
Making the most of that next morning. And it's okay to say no to social events for a while, or to, if someone asks you, do you want to go out for dinner? Ask them, do you want to go out for breakfast or brunch instead? And sort of fashion a life for a while around things that don't involve drinking.
Yeah.
That really worked for me early on too.
And also, when someone asks you, do you want to drink, or be like, just say no. Like, I'm good, thank you. You don't have to go. I feel like at the beginning I would be like, no, I'm just taking a break because I'm on a diet and I gotta run tomorrow. And like, don't don't go into the whole story. Just be like, I'm good, thank you. Like when
That's
somebody gives you a piece of chocolate and you don't want it, you're like, I'm good, thank you. Just say
yeah.
that. You don't have to make this whole story, because that's when you get in trouble and they're like, oh, you're okay? Is everything okay?
I
It's
did find having sort of like a script sounds silly, but something like ready in your head about what you're going to say when someone says, why not? Or, so when someone says, do you want to drink? If you're happy to just say, no, thanks, I'm good, that's fine. But if you want to offer some kind of explanation so that no more questions are asked, that's fine too. And, just whatever you're comfortable sharing, just have it ready. Like, what are you going to say if someone says, why aren't you drinking? Or like, I know some people still say to me, are you really not drinking forever? Like, is this really forever, or is this just for now kind of thing? Yeah, so have it ready what you're going to say so you
What's
don't
your
stumble.
answer to that when somebody asks you, is this forever or is this temporary thing?
Well, I always say that I can never guarantee anything forever. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to commit the rest of my life to be in a box and to, be a non-drinker forever. But what I do say is I've never found in the last 3 or 4 years a reason to go back to drinking. And
Mm.
like, I can't envisage any situation that would make me think, what, I want to drink for that occasion. But yeah, I never say never forever, because who
Yeah.
knows what
I
life is going
actually, like, Annie Grace gave a good, somebody asked her, do you drink? And she says, yeah, I do drink, but I just haven't wanted to in the
to.
last
Yes.
6 years. I think you probably heard her say that. And I was like, that's a brilliant explanation. It's like, yeah, I do drink, I can drink, but I just haven't wanted to in the last year or last 2 years, whatever it is that you want to say.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times when people ask you and they push on that question, it's usually because they are the ones that are uncomfortable being around you. You're not drinking, feeling like that maybe you're going to be judging them. So also be mindful of that, because usually it is the other people. And sometimes, the people that don't understand and they don't respect the boundaries and the fact that you don't want to drink and you want to live a sober and healthy life. Sometimes there's some people that I had to let go out of my life that no longer serve me because they were only the drinking buddies.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's okay too. I mean, it's a good time when you stop drinking to really like reflect on,
Mhm.
gives you the time and the space, like the headspace and the non-foggy brain to assess things. And I mean, really, if the only thing you have in common with someone is your drinking relationship, and the relationship won't survive without the two of you drinking together, then I think that says a lot about the friendship. And, I think, you'd be happy to let that person go. Um, yeah. Yeah, because if that's the only thing that's keeping a friendship going, then it's not a very sustainable friendship.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And so it's a great time to reevaluate some things in life. I do want to talk about something new that you're working on. I think you posted it on your Instagram, but I hear and I can't wait to get it. You're working on a mocktail recipe book. Is that right?
Yes, I can't
Yeah.
believe it. But a real life publisher wants to actually publish my book, which is
That's
incredible.
amazing.
So yeah, I'm working on it at the moment. I'm up to chapter 3. The concept of the book is actually mocktails that are better for you. So you won't find traditional mocktails that are packed with like sugar and bottled juice and
Mhm.
everything else. I'll be using, fresh ingredients, kombuchas. They'll be really hydrating, and just looking at healthier options for, each of the classic mocktails, but then lots of tea-based mocktails and, things that sort of nourish you from the inside out. So I'm really, really excited about it. The book is coming together so well. It's not going to be out until 2024, but it's going to be well worth the wait.
That is so exciting.
This one's just going to be a recipe book, so like perfect for a gift, perfect for a bar cart at home. But then later on, I would love to write. I actually spoke to my publisher about that too, about maybe writing something more about, the benefits of being alcohol free, and I'm sure there's something I could do with that too. But
And
this one,
definitely your story, because the story is what sells too, and just how you started this whole community and the mocktails. I mean, they are amazing. I actually made some when I was in Grand Cayman for my birthday. One of the mocktails was one of yours that I made, and it was fabulous. I loved it, and I cannot wait to make some more when your book comes out. My question is, like, how do you come up with this mocktails? I know you took some classes on how to pair the tastings. Like, does it take forever to like come up with something that's like perfectly done, the colors, like the layout of it? Like, it cannot be easy. I cannot imagine.
no, it's not easy. I have this amazing, actually, I wish I had it around here. I don't know where it is. I have this like massive flavor pairing Bible. It's literally like about this thick. Sorry, on the podcast, you can't see that, but it's probably that 3 or 4 inches thick, like a really thick book. And I use that for a lot of my inspiration. So yeah, like a flavor pairing Bible. And I think to myself, right, it's cherry season. I want to do something with cherries. And then I'll go through and I'll look at all of the, all of the flavor affinities that work well with cherries. And then the ideas just really come from there. So, yeah, I keep thinking one day I'm going to run out of ideas, but I just don't run out of ideas. And then there's always trending mocktails and things that are trending online, so sometimes I'll take those and have a play with those, and then just like the recreation of the classics are always fun. It's actually one of the chapters that I finished in the book, and it's like a healthier twist on each of the classic cocktails, so like your blue lagoons and pina coladas and everything.
Ooh, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I had a lot of fun working on that chapter. That was really awesome. And I'm consulting with a nutritionist at the same time, just so, I've got some really solid foundation there for, research-based like health benefits for each drink. Sorry. Yeah, so I haven't run out of ideas yet. I don't know. They just keep coming. And also, like, I feel like, mocktails are really just starting to take off now.
Yes.
And, the sky's the limit. It's like we're sort of redefining what a mocktail or what a non-alcoholic cocktail actually is. And, it's really just sort of taking on a life of its own. And, they're getting easier and easier to make at home. You can get like the really cute equipment now and some gorgeous glassware and, some nice ice molds, and just really, really have fun with it.
Yeah, and there's so many like non-alcoholic spirits that come out. Like I got like a non-alcoholic tequila to make margarita. It was amazing. I was like, this is so good. Like, it's really mind-blowing how much like it's out there, like that. It wasn't even like a year or 2 years ago when I look back. And I know there's like non-alcoholic like mocktail bars that are just mocktails that opening up, which is super cool. I love it.
Yeah, and doing exceptionally well. We've got a non-alcoholic here called Brunswick Aces, and they do really well. And I know there's one over there in the States. Is it Absence of Proof? Is she? I can't remember her name. But yeah, there's a non-alcoholic bar over there.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And also your book will have like whatever's on your Instagram, pretty much everything that's going to be in your book it's going to be new recipes, right? Like more than 80% or something like that, right?
Yeah. So the book will have around 65 to 70 recipes. There'll be 5 or 6 of my favorite ones that I've shared before online or, on my socials. But otherwise, it's going to be all brand new recipes developed, with this nutritionist to make sure they have, maximum nutritional value.
That's awesome. And can people pre-order this book yet, or is it not available yet for pre-order?
So I have a wait list for pre-order. So the best way to access that, if you head to my Instagram, so the Mindful Mocktail, and there'll be like a link in my profile at the top. And if you just click on that link, you'll see that there's a tab there where you can pop your name down for pre-orders, and I'll send you an email when pre-orders are open.
Yay! I'm putting myself on that list for sure. I love it. And I love what you're doing with this whole sober movement, just adding more and having more options for people that do want to choose the sober lifestyle and still want to enjoy a mocktail here and there that's healthy. Yeah, I love it. Before we go, this is one question that I'd like to ask all my guests on my podcast is, what are the 3 things you wish you had known sooner about anything in your life, relationships, health, family, whatever it is?
Sure. I have kept these, I mean, they're somewhat specific to my experience with quitting alcohol, so I hope that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I wish I had learnt earlier was healthier ways to manage stress. So for so long I used wine to manage stress and social media to manage stress. But I wish someone had taught me that what I was trying to do was like numb out, and obviously my body, my mind felt quite stressed, and what I was trying to do was release that stress, because until I didn't even realize that's what I was doing, so I wish I'd known earlier that just doing all the boring things that people tell you to do, like going for a walk or meditating for 10 minutes, or even having a nap if your lifestyle allows that. Even just down to things like sleeping well and eating well. These are all really the things that we need to do to help manage stress, and that there are healthy ways and unhealthy ways of managing stress. So that's good. I just wish I had learned earlier. I really wish I had known earlier that it's okay to walk away from something that is no longer serving you, even if it's always been part of your life. So once upon a time, it was just so huge. The idea of not having alcohol in my life was just ridiculous, because it just infiltrated every part of my life. And I wish I had been told earlier, you can let go of things, whatever it is, a relationship, alcohol, whatever, if it's no longer serving you. And then the third one sort of ties back into the first one. I wish I had known earlier how important it is to prioritize sleep and nutrition. Like, it's obvious, it's cliche, it's boring, but
it's number one. It's number one.
Like, cliches are cliches for a reason, because they're often true. And, when I think back to when I was so deprived with those 2 little boys, waking up multiple times a night, so sleep deprived, not eating properly, and there I was drinking a bottle of wine at night before bed, as a form of self-care. Like, it's just ridiculous. I was just making my life so much harder. And I wish I'd known that a long time ago, that sleep and nutrition.
And that alcohol did help you fall asleep, but it didn't keep you asleep, and those REM cycles were cut down. The time of your REM cycles were a lot shorter because of the alcohol in your body. So those are great points. Thank you for sharing. I truly enjoyed this. I hope people will go to your Instagram, get your book pre-ordered soon. Hopefully, the Mindful Mocktail is the Instagram. I'll link all that below. And thank you for inspiring people out there into the sober movement, for being honest and sharing your story without any kind of stigma or feeling like, oh, I shouldn't be talking about it. Because like you said, so many women have come up after you shared your story, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's me. And so there's no shame in it. And especially if you are struggling and you need help, reach out to someone, because it is worth it. It's life-changing.
Such a pleasure. It was just, such a really great conversation. And I just really thank you for inviting me to come on and chat.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I look forward to getting your book and sharing this podcast with everyone out there.